Hired a nanny to help my stay-at-home wife with our 2 kids, but discovered she sleeps until 10 a.m. daily and scrolls on her phone while I wake up at 5 a.m. to handle everything, and she claims I ruined her life and blames me for everything. I work construction. Out the door by 5:30, back home by 6, and somewhere in those 12 hours, I was apparently supposed to pity my wife Bridget for being overwhelmed by 2 toddlers in a 4-bedroom house we built so she could be home with them. She wanted a nanny. We could not afford a nanny. She cried for 3 weeks, said she was drowning, said our 2-year-old was destroying her mental health, said her sister had 2 nannies and a meal prep service. I picked up a second weekend job hanging drywall and hired Marisol at $22 an hour, 4 days a week. Marisol was 26, came with 2 glowing references, and lived 40 minutes away. Bridget hugged her on the first day and cried again, this time about how grateful she was. For the first month, I believed everything was working. The house was cleaner, the kids were calmer. Bridget posted 3 reels about being a present mother. Then I came home with the flu on a Tuesday at noon. I walked in expecting the kids napping, Bridget on a Zoom workout, Marisol prepping lunch. Instead, the house was silent in a way that did not feel right. Marisol was in the playroom on the floor with both kids and a sensory bin. Bridget was upstairs, asleep, 11:45 in the morning. The bedroom blackout curtains were drawn and her phone was face down on the comforter. I did not wake her. I went back downstairs and asked Marisol quietly when Bridget usually got up. Marisol froze. She looked at me, looked at the kids, and said, "Sir, I would rather not." That was the sentence. That was when I knew. I told her she was not in trouble, that I needed to understand what I was paying for. Marisol exhaled slowly and said Bridget had not gotten out of bed before 10 in the entire 8 weeks she had been working there. Some days it was 11. On a few days, Marisol had served the children lunch before Bridget came downstairs in a robe. I asked her if she had documented any of it. Marisol nodded once very carefully and said she kept a daily log on her phone because she had been burned by a previous family. I asked to see it. She showed me 8 weeks of timestamps. Wake up time for the children, wake up time for Mrs. Bridget, meals served, naps, activities. There were also photos of the kids eating breakfast alone at the counter, photos of Bridget on the couch on her phone while Marisol vacuumed around her feet, a photo from last Thursday of Bridget getting back from a 2-hour Pilates class while Marisol was changing a diaper. I sat at the dining table and did not speak for a full minute. I had been waking up at 4:45 for 9 months so my wife could rest. That night I waited until the kids were down. I told Bridget I had come home sick. I told her I had seen the bedroom at noon. She immediately started crying, said I was spying on her, said I had no idea what postpartum depression looked like, said she had been telling me for months she was struggling. I asked her why she had never mentioned struggling to her therapist, whose monthly invoices I paid. She said I would not understand. I said I might understand a log of 8 weeks of timestamps. Her face changed. She asked what log. I said the one Marisol keeps. Bridget stood up so fast she knocked over her wine. She said Marisol was a liar, that Marisol had been stealing from her purse, that she was going to fire her in the morning. I told her Marisol was not being fired. I told her Marisol was now the only person in this house I trusted. Bridget threw her phone at the wall and screamed that I had ruined her life, that this was the man she married, that I cared more about money than about her well-being. I went to the guest room and locked the door. The next morning, I left for work at 5. I sent Marisol a text asking her to forward me the full log and the photo folder. She did. I forwarded everything to a family law attorney named Dwight by lunch. Dwight told me to start a journal of my own and to install 1 new doorbell camera, not for the nanny, but to timestamp my arrivals and departures. I did. 3 months later, I filed for separation with primary custody requested. The judge read Marisol's log first. He read my journal second. He asked Bridget's attorney for any contemporaneous documentation showing Bridget as the primary caregiver. There was none. Bridget got every other weekend. I kept the house, the kids, and Marisol, who now works full-time. Bridget moved in with her sister. She still tells people I ruined her life.
When my father announced he was naming his new baby after my mother, I made sure the name died with my mother. I have never spoken to my father in my life until now. My father walked out on my mother when she was 7 months pregnant with me. However, tonight, I'm sitting at this table in some fancy restaurant, watching as my father stands like he's won the lottery. My father is remarried to some blonde, ditzy woman I've never met, and they're announcing the birth of their child. I didn't come to the dinner to forgive or to try for a relationship. I came to see if he was the same jerk I always knew him to be, the same disregard for everyone he hurt, to see what kind of lies he was spinning this time. His wife, dressed like a gender reveal Barbie, stands as well holding this obnoxiously decorated oversized cupcake with a single candle stuck in it. "Everyone, we have an announcement," my father says. Everyone turned to look at my father and his wife. "We're having a girl," his wife squeals. "And we've decided to name her Charlotte." He grins like he's the most clever person ever. My blood runs cold. Charlotte was my mother's name. The woman he walked out on and left her to raise me on her own. The woman he made struggle through the court systems trying to get child support. My father just preens like a peacock as the crowd claps politely. He looks at his wife. I know it sounds sentimental and unusual, since that was my first wife, but we want her to grow up with the same strength and grace as her namesake. My father acted like he had been the perfect spouse. It made me sick, but I held on for just a little longer, until his wife spoke up. "Charlotte was such a pretty woman. It's tragic what happened to her," his wife said tragically, looking directly at me. I couldn't stand it anymore. I stood up. "You don't get to use her name," I said loudly and more confidently than I felt. The table goes silent. Everyone was staring at me now. My father looks like he wants me 6 feet under. "Excuse me?" he demands. "You left her and me," I said. "You walked out on her 7 months pregnant, made her fight in courts for years for child support you never paid. You divorced and took everything. You abandoned one family and spent 15 years creating another one. You never even showed up to Mom's funeral when she died of cancer. In fact, Grandma told me you actually said you were glad the witch was dead. You think naming your child after her is some kind of honor? It's not. It's theft," I said, shaking. My father stammers. "I just thought," he starts. "No!" I shout, interrupting him. "It's not sentimental. It's manipulation. A way for you to control the truth. You always needed to be in control. Mom thrived despite your attempts to ruin her life. You can't erase what you did by giving your daughter her name," I said. He opened his mouth to say something else, but I'm not done. I handed him the gift bag I'd brought. He pulls out documents that reveal not only the truth of every court date, the financial fraud he committed to get out of child support, and my mother's will. "You know why I stayed silent?" all those years? I watched you try and destroy my mother's and my lives because I didn't have the power to stop you. But now, tonight you crossed a line. If I had ever thought of forgiving you, it's gone now, I said. People are looking uncomfortable. A couple of people leave. Some are whispering. His wife is whimpering that her party was ruined. My father looks pale, and for the first time, I see fear in his eyes. He puts a hand on his wife's shoulder as if to quiet her. If you go through with this, every time you say her name, you'll remember what you did. Not the fairy tale or whatever version you've created, but the truth. How you left mom, how you left me, and if you don't tell your daughter the truth of her name, I will. No amount of sugar, balloons, or pink sparkles will change that, I said. The entire table went silent again. I didn't, he stammers. Don't do this. I mean, I wasn't trying to. My father is acting like I'd just blown his world wide open. His wife sinks into the chair and starts reading the official court papers. Is it true? She asked him, like she couldn't believe her husband was capable of such a thing. He slowly nodded. She froze. I turned and left. I didn't bother to look back. I didn't need to. My mother's name would never be spoken by my father again.
My sister broke into my warehouse to sell my classic car collection for her wedding. Now she has a criminal record and I have no family. I spent 15 years restoring 8 classic cars in a warehouse outside town. Every weekend since I was 20, I welded floor pans, tracked down original parts, and rebuilt engines until my hands were black. My sister Brielle never once visited the warehouse. She called it my midlife garage hobby, even though I started at 20. Last March, she got engaged to a guy whose family owned half the country club, and suddenly her wedding had to be at a vineyard with 300 guests and a horse-drawn carriage. Our parents told her they could contribute $8,000. She laughed in their faces at Sunday dinner and said that wouldn't even cover the florist. Then she turned to me. Hayden, you have all that money sitting in those rusty cars. Sell one. You owe me. I told her I didn't owe her anything, and those cars weren't an ATM. She slammed her hand on the table so hard the gravy boat tipped. Mom started crying and Dad told me to stop being selfish. Your sister has one wedding, he said. You can buy another car. I left without finishing my plate. For 3 weeks, Brielle sent me daily texts, screenshots of vineyard quotes, photos of dresses costing more than my mortgage payment, voice memos where she sobbed about how I was ruining the most important day of her life. I stopped responding after the message that said I was a worthless brother who cared more about metal than family. What I didn't know was that 2 years earlier, I'd given her a spare key to my apartment for emergencies. Inside my sock drawer was the key card to the warehouse. She knew exactly where it was because she'd watched me put it there. On a Tuesday in April, I drove out for my usual evening session, and the side door was hanging open. The motion lights were busted. My stomach dropped before I even stepped inside. The 1967 Camaro was gone. The 1969 Mustang Mach 1 was gone. The Chevelle I'd spent 4 years restoring for our late grandfather, the one with his initials engraved into the dash, was gone. 3 cars, roughly $400,000 in market value. I called the police before I called anyone else. The detective who arrived asked who had access. I told him my sister had a key to my apartment and knew where I kept the warehouse card. He asked if I wanted to pursue charges if it turned out to be her. I said yes without hesitating. He looked at me carefully. You sure? Family stuff gets messy. She knew what those cars meant. Press whatever you can. Within 48 hours, they tracked the Camaro to a private buyer in the next state who'd paid cash to a woman matching her description. The Mustang was sitting at a wholesale lot under a fake bill of sale. The Chevelle had already been parted out. Grandpa's dashboard was in a shop in Phoenix. I sat in my truck and cried for the first time since I was 12. Brielle was arrested at her bridal shower in front of 40 women. The detective told me later she tried to claim I'd given her permission as a wedding gift. The forged signature on the bill of sale didn't match anything in my handwriting. The buyer's text messages with her made it worse. She told him the cars were hers and her brother was just storing them. 3 felony counts: grand theft, forgery, breaking and entering. My parents called me that night screaming. Mom said I was destroying our family over insurance money. Dad said real men didn't send their sisters to prison. I asked him if a real woman stole from her own brother and forged his signature. He hung up on me. The fiance's family pulled out of the wedding within a day. His mother sent my mother a text that said their family didn't associate with criminals. The vineyard kept the deposit. Brielle pleaded down to 1 felony and got 18 months probation plus restitution she'll be paying for the next decade. I got 2 cars back. The Chevelle is gone forever. I sat in my warehouse last Sunday looking at the empty bay where Grandpa's car used to be. My phone had 47 missed calls from family members telling me to drop the charges, telling me I was a monster, telling me Brielle had attempted suicide in jail. I checked with the detective. She hadn't. It was a lie my aunt invented to manipulate me. I changed my number the next morning. I haven't spoken to my parents in 7 months. Brielle's wedding never happened. My cousin sent me a photo from Easter showing the empty chair where I used to sit. Mom labeled it the brother who chose cars over family. I looked at that photo for a long time. Then I deleted it and went back to sanding the quarter panel on the Mustang.